company that they're contracted for a number of years. They just provide dive inspections.
Okay.
And they do have a vacuum process where they'll clean out, where Suez actually does a drain and repaint. Our current provider, Liquid Engineering, they'll do epoxy patches underwater if they find issues.
Any further question? I'll entertain a motion to approve the ARPA funds project designation for the water tower. Second? Second, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0. Water line pay estimate number 6. Mary, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm there.
Pardon?
I said they dug up my yard last week.
That means you're on new water.
Yeah.
Okay, so the pay estimate this time around is pay estimate number 6 to ditch diggers in the amount of $431,164.97. It's proportionally higher this time for a couple reasons. Number one, I'll go over the map here in a second, but just the amount of work they've completed. Number two, stored materials continue to go down as you use up stored materials, so that makes their pay estimates climb a little bit. Plus this time around, we're over 50% of the way done with the project, so we reduced the retainage from 10% to 5%. So we're now only holding $91,000 in retainage versus we were holding, twice as much. So that's about $100,000 chunk in retainage they get back this time around. On the map, you will see that a lot is turning green. Part of the green, like on Coble and Freeborn, even though everybody switched over to the new services on those lines, we still haven't done the abandonments of the old line yet. So just because it's green, what that means is everybody on that is now on the new water system. So you can see that they're currently getting everybody moved over on Roosevelt. The line is in on Roosevelt, but we still have to get it pressure tested and chlorinated tested, and then we'll start switching services over on that one. And then they've got the line on Cedar, they're down to Maple. We're putting a new line underground. So we only have 3 more blocks in that main part of town, plus in that chunk down on the south end of town there that's still yellow and planned out there for a couple weeks down the road. We've also, I know there was a lot of water outages over the last couple of weeks, especially in the northeast part of town, and that was to get those valve sets at Lawrence and Coble, and then also Roosevelt and Denver. And then also there was another set that unfortunately just happened to be on the day of the Charles Kennedy funeral, right behind Eastmore. So we were able to get the water turned back on in the church before the funeral happened, but it was a little tight there. So that valve set has been also replaced. The only one you'll see that's still listed for valve set replacement, it'll be right in front of the Food Bank Fitness Center at Thorpe and Main Street. And what we found there is we've operated those valves enough now with all the other outages we've had. The valves are actually in good shape there. The problem is, and that's what we've been talking about it today and last week, it's not that the valves are bad, it's just, you don't know what they're really closing and not closing. We've got a spider web of something going on underneath the ground that we can't quite figure out how stuff's interconnected. There's obviously some parallel lines running in multiple directions, and so we just need to, once we get that part of town done, we'll just be able to go play with valves again. So I don't think we'll actually have to do any valve replacements at that intersection. It's more just figuring out, we might have to do an interconnect between 2 lines to figure out so that we know what valve shut down what in the future, but valve replacement we probably won't have to do. And then the big bulk of what's still up and coming is just major amounts of cleanup. We've been going back and like Elm Street, Hudson, those up in there, they've been cleaned up. Lincoln is being cleaned up as far as the piles. They're jetting right now. I noticed today they're jetting over on Freeborn. So we're trying to catch up with that, but we always have to wait a little bit, to get the ground to settle back out, so we don't have massive holes to fill. And then around the 1st of September, we'll go and start seeding any of the areas we weren't able to seed in the spring. So, and we've been trying to inform homeowners of that as we go, that seeding will happen once the weather is conducive to putting seed back on the ground. So with that, like I said, the pay estimate we're presenting tonight is in the amount of $431,164.97 to ditch diggers.
Questions? I would move to approve water line pay estimate number 6. Have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Number 16, approval of June, July EDH engineering invoice.
And was there 2 of them on this time around, or
Just
one?
one.
Just the one, okay.
That's the one.
Okay, so, this is for our expenses for EDH, for June 20th to July 17th. Requesting $22,693.24, which is inspection and also construction phase engineering, AIS compliance administration. That was it, those 3 items.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, is there a motion to approve this invoice?
I'll entertain a motion to approve the EDH engineering invoice.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Number 17, approval of ransom grant administration invoice.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is an interim statement our fees are based on the percentage of completion the contractor has on the project until we get to the final 10%. So this is just an interim statement for work we have completed on the project.
Any questions? I move to approve CDBG drawdown request number 6.
That's number 17.
I'm sorry, ransom grant administration invoice.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now number 18.
Okay, next is the CDBG drawdown request number 6. This is for $88,000 to pay for a portion of ditch diggers pay estimate that you just approved.
Pardon me, Ms. Mayor, is the amount not 85,000?
You're right, I wrote down wrong. That is correct, 85,000.
Any questions, council? I entertain a motion to approve CDBG drawdown request number 6.
So moved.
And second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Number 19.
This is for the balance of the invoices you just approved in the amount of $371,858.21, KDH&E drawdown.
Any questions? I move to approve, KDHE SRS loan drawdown number 7.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0.
Just for council's information, the state will be out on August the fifth, I don't know exactly what time yet, to take a look at the project files and to look at the project site. Thank you.
Number 20, charter ordinance number 21-01.
Yes, Your Honor, council, I had presented this before with some different language in number 5. I've gone back and modified that language, in order to help us with our current situation. Basically, what the language says now, and I think the most important part is section B, appointed officers. The city may appoint individuals to appointed positions, whether or not they are residents of the city, when deemed necessary by the governing body. Now, this doesn't mean that you're opting out every time, it just says when deemed necessary. The reason I think this is important that we get this taken care of is, I think I gave you the memo, and in my talking to the league, because I know Councilor Herbal and I talked a couple times, and she talked about wanting to do specific people. The league advised that we still would have to charter out of this ordinance to say which specific people, and they did not recommend that we do that based upon the fact that it could be found that we are discriminating against other employees. So this is the resolution that I've come up with that doesn't opt all the way out, but it does say we will do it when we deem necessary, and I believe this should take care of any current situation. My digging and going through the history, and I talked to Jerry actually, and I talked to Martin Tice and several other people. The city council thought they had taken care of this way back when Becky was first hired, because it was known that she was going to be moving outside of the city when she was appointed as a city treasurer. But it didn't get taken care of for whatever reason, and so that's just why I bring this back to you so that we can get this matter cleared up for everyone's sake. So, does anybody have questions?
I have one. Did you actually, when you talked to the League of Municipalities, did you ask them about the suggestion I made? It says, from this day forward, all newly appointed employees of the city of Marion shall live in the city limits of Marion as pertaining to the state statute 1405. And then I noticed in section 1 here, it says, hereby elects to and does exempt itself from making inapplicable. And that covers that 1402 or 14-205.
When I talked to them, Ruth, I didn't use your specific language, but I did talk to them about the fact that you had asked about granting an exception for now, but they said we still would have to charter out to grant an exception for now. And so, because of the fact that we have appointed people who don't live within the city. And so this is what they suggested was the best way to cover that. So I did not use your specific language, but I did describe what you were asking.
Okay, but my point is that we don't wanna harm these employees, we wanna keep them. But I want future employees to be residents of the city of Marion.
And I understand that, and that's why B says that you can appoint them when they're not residents, when deemed necessary. So that doesn't mean you always have to appoint someone who's not a resident, but when you deem it necessary, you can.
And this language will not create exposure for discrimination.
Correct. This is the language that was recommended by the league.
If we offer employment to, one of these individuals that covers under this, we can make that part of the, agreement to hire them. It'd be the same thing. It's what, it'd be the same thing as what you're asking to do. Wouldn't be any different.
Well, I'm still not happy with it because it says elects and does exempt itself from KSA 14-205.
Well, charter ordinance specifically charters out of the state statute, and there's no language in that state statute statute of 405 that indicates you can add somebody's name to the charter ordinance. It's just chartered out of that 14-205.
Right, which is what we have to do in order to adopt what I'm saying.
Basically, that's the only thing the charter ordinance does, it just says you don't have to follow that state statute, other cities don't follow it.
But my point, Dave, is I wanna follow that state statute. I want people to live inside of Marion that's employed, but I just don't want it.
Well, then what's our, how are you gonna solve our dilemma?
We're gonna end up losing employees. We don't resolve this now.
And Susan, you don't think by putting a statement in there that says from this day forward, all new appointed employees of the city of Marion shall live in the city limits?
I think if you add that statement, then you're not chartering out. We have to charter out in order to allow people who are not living in the city to be employees. If that wants to be your policy, when you appoint people in the future, you certainly are free to do that, but this covers our situation for now.
And I think it's discriminatory. For a new person to come in, if we were gonna hire them, it'd be discriminatory. To say, how the employees we have currently can live outside the city limits, but any new ones can't. That's discrimination. No. I mean, and it's a simple fix, it's just to make it if somebody wants to come to work for us, we want them to live in the city limits, then they have to live in the city limits to accept the position. And that's what this charter ordinance allows for. Otherwise, if we don't charter out of it, what's our options? We don't have any.
If we charter out of it, it lets all of our important people like fire chief, chief of police, and people like that are really necessary to be inside the city limits, and therefore I'm not for it. I'm sorry. I think there is a solution somewhere, we just haven't dug deep enough yet.
We haven't what?
I just don't think we have found the right solution yet.
Where
I mean, we
did
don't
we
wanna-
go? We went to the Kansas League of Municipalities, to their attorneys, and this is the advice that they're giving us. I mean, have you received any information from other attorneys that would allow for it?
In a
Yeah, we need
roundabout
to know
way,
that.
yes.
Huh?
In a roundabout way, yes.
And,
I was told that this would work.
okay, who indicated that?
I'm not going to put a name to it.
Well, we're sitting here with a real issue, and we're listening to our attorney, and we're listening to the league attorney, but you've got different information, it'd be nice to know, have that individual give us that advice personally. Whoever that is. So,
Where are you on this, Jerry?
One.
Where are you on this position?
Oh,
I've heard from everybody else.
no, I'm okay with it.
With the proposal in our packet.
any further discussion? Anybody want to say anything? And I move to approve charter ordinance number 2021-01. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. special meeting request, number 21. Councilor Horrible?
Yes, I asked to be put on the agenda because I would like to have a budget meeting. We really haven't had budget meetings this year. We had one, the first part of June, and then, I don't know what happened, the rest of them, we canceled one of them. But I have a lot of questions on the budgets.
Well, we had two.
No, we did cancel one. There was a schedule conflict where one counselor and one was recovering from surgery. And so that,
Didn't we decide we're having later because we don't have to have it in as soon as what we thought, is that correct?
we didn't,
Say that
we
again?
did not fix another meeting date,
Yeah, okay,
okay?
right.
We will hold the R&R hearing, the revenue neutral rate hearing on the 23rd. Before the budget is adopted, you'll hold the traditional budget hearing, public hearing, for comment at that time. So those are still two features before the budget, you vote to approve, ratify, and submit.
What's the pleasure of the council? It has to be approved.
Roger, will I be able to ask questions at the,
Mrs. Herbal, you're always able to ask questions of staff directly at any time.
okay, thank
We've
you.
offered that repeatedly to visit with you, answer your concerns, your questions. That offer's still out there.
You have anything further?
No, that's it, Dave.
Okay. Any of the council have anything they'd like to address tonight? Department reports. Tim?
Good,
Okay. How we doing on the street? We getting close?
we're working on it. Had a little rain delay, we're back on it today.
Have any idea when they'll, maybe how to be able to get to it? Just to, I know you can't say tomorrow or a week from now, but.
Well, I'm hoping next week, maybe he can get on it at some
Okay.
point,
All right.
so.
Clinton?
Nothing further?
Margot? Randy's not here, I guess, is he?
He's on a train somewhere in Arizona or New Mexico with his grandchildren.
No.
And that's an excuse.
Susan?
Nothing, just to advise you, I will not be here the next meeting, because I'll be in Arizona or somewhere along those lines, so.
Okay. Tiffany?
Nothing further.
Roger?
Nothing, sir.
Okay. Public forum, anyone wish to speak to the council during the public forum?
I do. So I just, wanna talk to council today about, we've been to Council Grove several times this year. Council Grove's a home away from home from us, and in Council Grove, they have signs in the busy intersections. They're about as tall as this. It says, it's bright yellow, it says stop for pedestrians when they're crossing. It's a state law. I feel strongly that Marion could benefit from three of them. I've done my homework on them. They look to be about a little over $300 a piece. The proposed intersections that I have in mind for those would be the Casey's intersection on Main. The police station, I think, is 5th and Main. Right there where the post office is, there's a huge blind spot. I'm sure everyone slammed on their brakes a few times, not seeing the cars coming up the road. I believe that one is desperately needed for that intersection, and then one for 3rd and Main. We have so many more kids. Last year, I know in Hillsborough, there was a child that died from, an unfortunate incident. My daughter, she's 9 and she's become more independent. She wants to ride her bike to the park, but it scares me on that intersection. So I propose that you guys entertain thinking about those. Like I said, I've done my research on them, they're a little over $300 a piece, and I think 3 of them would be great, if not 2. And then the other thing, after
Before you move
listening,
on, are
I'm
they
sorry?
in the middle of the intersection or?
Yes.
are
Yes.
Yes,
they Like,
all the cities have them,
yeah,
they do, they're very bright.
they look like this, if you can see.
not from here.
Some of them even have flashing lights on them.
They have,
Oh.
if they get hit, they bend down, they pop back up, they're double-sided. So, those are just something that I had in mind.
While we're on that subject, I have a question about, doesn't DOT regulate what we can put on Main Street?
It
As
seems
far
that
as
these are
signage?
approved for, the research that I've done, that these are approved through,
So we'd probably have to get it approved through DOT, right?
Right, we just get a hold of Joe Pollock and.
Get it approved that way.
Yeah,
Okay,
We just
that's-
need to put together a proposal, I need to go to the district engineer, Joe. Don't anticipate it being an issue.
I just feel like Marion County is way behind on pedestrian rights.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So those are just, that's my thought, and then after listening to the council meeting today, I just wanna say, Becky, I've been in Marion for 20 years, Becky's been always the face of the office, and without Becky, like, just thank you for all the job that you've done, I can't believe it's been even a question. Sorry you've gone through this.
Thank you for that. We'll look into that, and, probably would that be a council approval? thing?
Yes, Allison, could I bother you to send me that picture so I can
Mm-hmm,
start
I'll
the
send you
research
the
and I'll
link.
get with the engineer? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, do some research on it and we'll make a recommendation. Okay, anyone else? Nope. And motion to adjourn.
Move